Hi everyone, welcome to the channel. Thank you for tuning in. Today I have a very special guest with me. I have Psychic Lauryn. And you might know Lauryn from the interview she did with me on her channel. Lauryn invited me to talk about Lenormand and I shared that with you guys. It was such a great interview. And I was really happy that Lauryn found me because I discovered someone who is rather special. Lauryn is a psychic, and she is a special psychic because she has a unique angle on this subject, on this very important subject. And actually, this angle is one that I really resonated with. So I was just amazed how the universe brought us together to get to know each other as we do this amazing work. And Lauryn is a very down-to-earth person. She has a very grounded and well-rooted approach to all things related to psychic ability. So I'm really excited to have her on today so she can tell us about her approach and what she does. So Lauryn, thank you for making it today. I'm so happy that you're on. There is so much that we can talk about when it comes to psychic ability, but I guess we can talk about the big headlines. But before we get into this, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background and what got you to do this work? So a little bit about your journey.
Well, first, thank you so much for having me. I had so much fun making that video with you. I think so many people have been loving it and found it useful. So a bit about me. Yes, I'm a psychic. I'm also a medium. I'm also a psychic development coach. That's kind of mainly what I do, is I teach others how to develop their abilities. And how I kind of got into it, short version, is that my family dog died. And I was really upset, and I went to go see a pet psychic. It was the first time I'd ever seen a psychic. And she just blew me away and told me things that I would not have even known. And told me things that no one else would have known either. And she told me that, I had these abilities too. And I thought that was weird because I'd never really been interested in it. But I kind of went out of my way to learn about the psychic ability. And I got very lucky with the group that I found here in Colorado in the US. We had a group called the Aspen Program for Psychic Development. And my coach, my mentor there, she kind of taught us that everyone is psychic. Everyone has this ability and anyone can learn. So I kind of have a very different story in that I sought it out. I chose to learn it and I purposely exercised it. Kind of like a muscle is how I like to describe it. Everyone has the ability to strengthen a muscle. It's not like only for a select few, but basically through that, I just learned how to become psychic, and I coached at that program for a while, kind of did it for fun in the background, but now I've become like a full-time psychic, which I did not ever think I was going to be. But yeah, I like to just share my story because it's so different. You hear so many psychics that have all these crazy things happen to them, and I think I represent a lot of us who just want to learn and can learn and do learn, and we can all be psychic.
Awesome. So when you say, Lauryn, that you are a psychic, what does it mean you do? Can you tell us a little bit, before we get into your angle and your approach to it, when we say we are psychics, what does it mean we do exactly, just in case folks don't know?
No, that's a great question. I think it's truly about being able to use your abilities to connect to a divine source. So that source could be God, it could be angels, it could be the universe, whatever you personally believe in. It could be animals, spirits that have crossed over. You are using your abilities to receive information kind of from that other side is how I would describe it. And that's usually somebody who can look into the past, present, future, and answer questions using that psychic ability or that muscle.
So it is about getting information, insights from another source, whatever that source may be for us personally.
Absolutely. And you kind of receive it through your psychic clairs is what I like to call them.
Right. So let's get to your angle on this. And I guess this is the part that really excites me because I think this is what's kind of special, what I resonate with when it comes to your approach. So what is your personal approach to psychic abilities, Lauryn? Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, and I appreciate that you recognize that, because that's, my goal is to be as grounded, and I try not to be super woo-woo. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but I think a lot of people come to me because I try to be skeptical. I try to be very grounded and practical, and ask questions and, not take everything and believe everything that comes across. So my approach is very much like teaching people to be skeptical, practical, like not fall down into holes of believing like everything that you see, and really just remembering to live like the human experience while you're also still like learning to play with these tools, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I have to say I really resonate with that, and I appreciate that you say that there isn't really anything wrong with woo-woo. I appreciate that there's a lot of different ways these things are done, but
Yeah.
I personally feel that the way some people work with this subject matter can sometimes give it a bad name. If I could put it this way, I think it is important to have a certain degree of integrity and to do it for the other person, knowing that it's quite a responsibility, as opposed to doing it, for ego or to look good or try to impress people. And I think that's just one level. I think it can get a bit worse as well. And I'm sure you're aware of that. And I think we'll get to that in a bit as well, with a bit more detail.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, when you say you are a full-time psychic, that you practice being a psychic, what does it mean you do? Do you offer certain services? What are those services that you offer? Can you tell us a little bit about, how you give this gift of yours?
Yeah, and I'm kind of twofold because I'm a psychic, but I'm also a coach. So I offer a little bit of both. So people come to me for like readings. So that might be like private one-on-one readings, but I also have people come to me for like one-on-one coaching, for developing their psychic ability. And other than that, my offerings are kind of like, I have a Facebook group for people to connect and develop their psychic abilities. We also have like a monthly psychic development practice night where I just let everyone read each other, and just kind of facilitate and hold that space so people can get that practice in. And then other than that, I have like live nights on YouTube, and just a lot of offerings on like Patreon, extra content. I have a lot of like videos, and that's mostly where people like find me, is just through my free resources. But then I also have like paid courses for learning about your psychic abilities as well. So a little bit of everything.
It's just great. I'll be sure to link some resources so that my folks can reach out to you. I'm very aware of your videos. I love your videos. I tune in every so often, but I haven't tuned into your live nights. And actually, I think I might want to do that at some point. That sounds really exciting. I really wonder what goes on in there.
You have a lot of fun.
Awesome. So, Lauryns, I have a question. You know that I read Lenormand. Of course, I'm familiar with the tarot and all sorts of other divination methods, actually. So, how do you combine psychic ability with such tools, card tools, other tools? The idea of a divination tool. Anyone really? I don't think it matters. But I'm wondering, how do you combine your psychic ability with a practice like Lenormand or the tarot?
Yes, I like to teach and practice kind of with the methodology that your psychic ability should kind of come first. And then these tools are like a supplement, like you use them to help you. Not saying that you can't like primarily do a reading using Lenormand. I think it's so much fun. But it's almost like when you're reading and maybe you are stuck, maybe you don't understand what the cards are saying. It's kind of having your intuition, your psychic ability to fall back on, so that, if the cards aren't clear or something, you have a knowledge, you have a background, you have like a skill in your back pocket that you can always rely on. So I always teach kind of learning the psychic clairs first. That's kind of how this information comes in, how you receive it. You usually see it, hear it, feel it. Sometimes you just know. And so that's kind of where I start, but then I add the tools on top of it, because the tools, the cards, I should say, they just make it more complex. They make it more fun. There's so much imagery and symbolism in those cards, and it just adds like an element of like storytelling and complexity to your readings that I think is so much fun. And I think that everyone should learn how to use it. But I always obviously advocate for learning how to use that psychic ability just in case you get stuck, basically.
I totally resonate with that. I think that apart from having these clairs that you talk about, or we have them, but I mean having developed them and sharpened them, I feel that you need to be some kind of a receptacle. Like you need to be a certain person who can receive messages, and that person needs to be someone in my opinion, you need to have a certain degree of integrity and also a certain degree of openness. So if you haven't done, to some extent, a bit of work on yourself, I think that it can actually be an obstacle to receiving messages. So I think that we are always walking these two journeys. We help others evolve and receive messages, but we also continuously work on ourselves to be able to, to be open to these messages and to handle them with integrity. Personally, that's how I see it. And I think the way you're seeing it is having these clairs, extra antennas, I guess, to receive information, to having sharpened like your senses so that you can receive these messages. I think it's really important to be that, that receptacle that can receive these messages, or else the tool can land on deaf ears. You know what I mean? Like the tool is trying to tell you something, but there isn't the receptacle to see it. So it has to be both. So I totally agree with that. That makes total sense to me. Yeah. So speaking of these tools, and that, because we had that conversation about Lenormand. So how did you discover Lenormand? Just like just a bit of a segue into this tool, because it's my favorite tool. So I'm wondering about how you came to discover it.
Well, that's where you come in. Basically, I was learning tarot at the time. I was like taking a bunch of courses on that, and I kept hearing about the Lenormand, and I was like, what is this? And so I got online, Googled it, and of course your channel pops up with all your videos, and some other people too, but I loved yours because I think we just have very similar teaching styles. You're just like, here's the information, here's it very organized, here's some courses. So I actually found it a lot through you, and that's where I learned how to like understand it. So I found it through you, is the short answer.
That's really good to know. I'm happy to hear that. So I know that you're focused on your clairs, but I also see that you do a lot of divination yourself. Like you do tarot, you do, I think, runes as well, Lauren, and also you've of course you've done Lenormand. Do you have a favorite tool that you use with your psychicability, or like in your approach and your system?
Yeah. Well, and that's one thing, is that I know a lot of people loves these divination tools. So anytime there's a new tool, I try to like grab it, understand it, learn it, so that I can like teach people how to use it. But I would say my favorite is honestly cards. And I would kind of put Lenormand, Oracle, and Tarot all on the same spectrum. I love them equally. And I think that just comes down to kind of what I talked about before, of like, I love the imagery, I love the symbolism, I love that you can piece them together to tell a story. And I think people just love, looking at them as well as I do. Like, I don't know, you can see behind me, I have just so many I've collected over the years. I have way too many. But those are definitely my favorite. And I love specifically Lenormand because it's such a different way of reading, and it's kind of like a fun challenge as a psychic to use a tool in a very different way than like tarot and oracle, and really stretch my psychic skills, but also stretch like my knowledge of this tool in particular. I just love how different it is, honestly.
I definitely agree with that, and that's the reason Lenormand stuck with me, because it's really not like the other decks. It really does have a unique way of doing things. It's not just another deck that you could do with the same kind of layouts. It does have a truly different way of interpreting, and I call that the interpretive imagination. And I think that Lenormand really helps with stretching that, with the lines and the stories. So I think that's the reason why it stuck with me most. Of course, I personally have a preference. So like I said at the outset, I'm really drawn to your down-to-earth approach. And, I did talk a little bit earlier about how I feel that it should be this way to some extent. How do you make a case for psychic abilities and this area of our life and our practice not to fall for superstitions, not to be too woo-woo, and to lose credibility? How do you handle that? How do you approach that?
Yeah, well, and this was something that was taught to me, and this is something that I still teach, but I think being skeptical is okay, and also being wrong is okay. And I think that a lot of us think that psychics have to be 100% right 100% of the time, and we have to believe everything that they say. But I really think that good psychics, question themselves when, they get information? Do they double check it? Do they admit when maybe they made a mistake or when they were wrong? I think people love when you do that extra checking, when you are, like you kind of said, you have integrity and you admit to being fallible, because to assume that we are perfect and we're getting the information perfect 24/7, I think it's such a high standard that no one should hold themselves to. And truly, I think that when the majority of the world realizes that, psychics don't have to live to this expectation, I think all of a sudden it won't be that you have to question if they're real or not. I think that the expectations are so high, and if they were lowered a little bit and we all understood that psychics could get things wrong, we don't have to listen to everything they say, I think it makes it a lot more palatable of an approach to psychics, if that makes sense.
I totally resonate with that. And I think that the way people like you and I see these things is that psychic abilities are a lot more natural than supernatural, and the idea that, like your teacher was saying, we have it, we could develop it. It's like a muscle, like you were saying. This is actually natural if we just, we clear up, we do the inner work, we're open, like I was saying, and just allow, we might be surprised at what can come through. So I do think that these abilities are not supernatural or out of this world. I think they are natural. They're part of our existence. And when we see things in this way, then I think it helps lower the expectation and really adjust our thinking about what these things are and what they mean. And I think it's really important to check in with yourself. I think if you don't have a healthy dose of skepticism, a healthy dose of self-questioning, honestly, I think there is a problem. You have to have the reason and the reasonableness to question things, because all your thinking and your intuition, your heart and your mind, all of it has to work together. I think reason and the mind get a bad name unnecessarily. I think it's actually really good to have it because it helps you look at the big picture and question things. And I think it's an indication of maturity, the idea that you're not always right, and that the world is big, and that experiences, there's a lot of experiences out there, so it's okay to be wrong, like you were saying. So I think that's just really a brilliant way of putting it. So on this note, Lauryns, what are those things that you dislike about the psychic world? So are there the way things are practiced, or the way people deal with it, or perhaps how they teach it? Are there some areas that you feel are not okay that you would like to improve or change?
Yeah, and I mean, we've kind of been talking about it to some extent, and I think it's just bad ethics in psychics. That's like my big pet peeve. So like my one thing I really push in all of my courses and all of my videos is just having good ethics, because I think that you can have bad ethics whether you know it or not. There's some people that maybe they have good intentions and they just do things wrong, or I shouldn't call it wrong as much as like maybe to a point where it could hurt someone else or harm someone else. Or you could be knowingly, having bad ethics, taking advantage of people. And truly, I think it's that the people with the bad ethics sometimes get the most limelight, and so I think that's why psychics for so long have been seen as just, I don't know, they've been seen in a bad light because of it. It's those bad eggs that get like the attention. And so my big thing is that I hope that the more good eggs that stand out, people with good ethics, the more they put themselves out there, again, those expectations become more practical. But overall, that's kind of my big pet peeve. And I think it's one of the reasons that we just don't have like a standard among psychics. There's no like governing body, there's no rules, there's no accreditation. It's kind of hard to like put that around psychics. And my goal, my dream one day would maybe to like be in my lifetime, see that happen. But I think it really will require a lot of psychics to really check themselves and, talk about or be good about kind of the things that we've been talking about with like ethics, being skeptical, and maybe, that would make us, be able to be taken seriously a little bit more. Not that that's not already happening, but yeah, I think it's my dream and my hope that we can be taken a little bit more seriously in the future.
I definitely agree with that. And I think that it's, it's people who have this kind of conversation who I think can bring it forward. I think you're right. I think, the people who are in the limelight are very theatrical about, divination and stuff. And it's almost like a show. And I think, and that's what attracts attention. And unfortunately, a lot of people like that because people like to be wowed and people like to be entertained, but I guess that's fine. Like, I don't, I guess I don't care, but I care to, to make it real, because really when it's real, that's when the real wow comes through. You know what I mean? That it is natural, that it is real, it is part of life. And that's why I like it when people try Lenormand for themselves, because you can adapt the cards in such personal ways that they can truly impress you with the messages that they give you, and you will read them in such a personal way that it just really lands on you. And I don't think there's a shortcut to personal experience with that, because these are intangible experiences. So you have to experience them for yourself. And then when a bunch of people have experienced that, then they can come together and talk about these experiences that turn out to be experiences that we have in common. But really, it's an inner thing as well. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, I agree. It's got to be people who are grounded and have their 2 feet on the ground for this.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So Lauren, do you teach this? Like, how do you pass this on? This perspective of yours, your skills, your practice, how you bring these things together. Like, what can my folks get from you if they reached out to you, if they wanted to go out and explore Lauren, watch her channel, look at her resources? What do you offer?
Yeah, basically my thing is if you just want to learn, hop on over to YouTube. You're already on YouTube, I guess, but you can check out my free videos. And I truly think that starting with psychic development exercises, that's how you learn, by practicing. So I have a lot of videos on how to exercise that skill, a lot of different fun techniques, like reading some of these tools like Lenormand. And then after that, if you're really serious, you can take my courses as well. I've got like a really basic level course. I have a psychic development masterclass that is out. Hopefully right now it's very close to being finished. And I also have an animal communication course. I have some others like in the works planned. But then if you want like more personalized one-on-one coaching, and you just need that more like customized like touch, you can always reach out to me for a reading, for coaching. But yeah, that's normally where I say to start with what I offer.
That's great. And that sounds like a lot. So Lauren, thank you for this. I'm wondering, based on what you're doing now, what are your intentions for the future? Do you have like a future vision, not just, maybe for yourself, but maybe for the broader community as well? What are your intents for the future?
I think that, well, one, I already mentioned it. I do want to have more courses up. I want a course on mediumship, on medical intuition. Those are something I'm also like certified in. But I want to keep growing this community, because I really feel like I was very lucky to have the tools, the courses, the classes that I did when I did, but I know that not everyone does. People live in areas where this is not accepted and you don't have that community. So that's why I try to make myself really accessible online with like my Facebook group, my Patreon, where we have like Q&A nights and that monthly practice night. So I try to make myself available, and I really want to keep that community growing so that everyone can connect, ask each other questions, practice with each other. Long-term vision, I would love to have like psychic development retreats. I think that would be so much fun. But overall, I think what I would love to see in my lifetime is just, I don't, accreditation is kind of the wrong word, but I would love to see like a standard that, psychics all kind of adhere to, so that we're all, again, like taken with more integrity, more credibility, and we're just seen in like a better light. I feel like spiritually, that's part of the reason why I'm here doing the work that I do. I just think that I'm supposed to help push people in that direction for some reason. I feel very passionate about it, but yeah, lots of stuff, hopefully, both for my followers and myself. So I'm going to be around for a while, I think.
That's a really amazing topic. And, you know, it really inspires me as well, I have to say, Lauren. Maybe we should talk more about this at a future time, but we could discuss, you know, the kinds of ethics that would bring people together to make this more grounded, more, you know, more empowering in a natural way, as I like to say. So these are amazing topics. I'll be sure to link a whole lot of resources for you guys in the description box, so be sure to look into that. And I think I'll also follow up with my newsletter, so stay tuned for that. Lauren, this was a wonderful conversation. Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got you on here. Before we close, do you have any takeaways you think the Lenormand reader community and other communities, you know, can take away from this conversation or from your work in general?
I mean, I think what I always say is go with your gut, go with your intuition. You know, if you're feeling drawn to learn Lenormand, if you're feeling drawn to develop your psychic abilities, that's that intuition talking. And, you know I'm not for everybody, and that's totally okay. But at least I hope to help people find and understand what's going on, so maybe they can find someone else that could help them. So if you like my approach, feel free to come check me out. But yeah, I hope that you all have fun.
Thank you, Lauren. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you so much for your time. And folks, please like, share, and subscribe, and share this video. I think these are really important topics that more people who do our thing are aware about. Lauren, thank you so much for joining, and I hope we have more opportunities to talk in the future. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Layla.